Hello and welcome to part 4 of our Boba Fett illustration. As you can see, the biggest change at the minute is that I went back and redrew the pencil sketch. So you can see I added a fair more bit of detail while the camera was not rolling. And we will see how that adjusts our inks. So just testing here to see, make sure the tablet's working fine. And now we will turn down the opacity of the pencil drawing. Yeah, we'll just turn down the opacity. Keep it quite low as we were before. And now we can see the inks that we did before. They still work over the new pencils. So making sure we're on the right layer, locking the new pencils. Still got the old ones hidden away. You can see, making sure that I'm on the right tool. Don't want the pencil tool. We're going to focus on this arm over here today. Remembering that I am supposed to have a second window open, which I do bring up in a second. I'm having to re-record this vocal because I managed to turn it off on Adobe Audition. So I'm trying to remember exactly what I did at each point. I do bring up a second window in a second, I remember that. So spending a bit of time on Boba Fett's arms and now moving down to his jetpack. Starting to bring out a few more solid blacks. Again, following the perspective lines, especially on the solid materials. So jumping onto his hand armor here. You know, here, remembering the second window. So drag that out and we'll make that fit. I can never remember the keyboard shortcut for Clip Studio on this, but there we go. So now you can see exactly a full screen image regardless of me rotating, which I'm sure I do now. Yeah, see? So thinking about light sources again, bottom of the hand here, all in darkness. Having to undo a few strokes there. It's quite weird watching my own drawing back, trying to think of what to say. It's a lot easier as I draw, but with a crying newborn, sometimes I have to wait till the rest of the house is asleep. So again, here I'm just trying to create depth on the arm, thinking about shadow placement and trying to give it enough life to bring it away from the chest. So where do we go next? I believe now we start trying to work on Boba Fett's, is it a rope or I think he has a rope around his arm or a cape. We do come back to that. I remember we do spend a bit of time on that. Looking at the hands now. Hands is something I've always struggled with drawing. Never been the best at hands. Lots of practice, but still not my best. Just gonna move the mic a bit. Again, just trying to make some ripples in the fabric here. Yeah, adding some more shadows onto the arm. I think you can kind of see where this illustration's starting to go to now. How I want it to appear. Strong shadows as usual with my work. But, you know, a bit of life. So moving up towards the chest. Now, the top of the armour and erasing some lines. I find that technique works for me quite well, is to erase back once I've drawn a stroke. Ah yes, here I didn't like the shape of Boba Fett's head anymore, so I went back and tried to create a more organic shape. Erasing some of the older, less detailed lines. They're making a much stronger line. Lots of erasing at this time, trying to remove some of the older drawing that I wasn't happy with. Believe the head changes quite a lot here. We start to add some strong lines. Happy to erase older stuff as I go on, go back and rework it. Especially with the increased with the better line work, shall we say. Here I'm just toggling the inks to see the shape of the visor of Boba Fett, and then I just add a lot of black here. We just go a bit crazy. May have to erase back using a much bigger brush. As you can see, I've brought the panels, brought them back into the frame, because it's so much easier just to resize if you can actually see what you're doing. He says as he realizes I kept them off. Whoa, big mistake there. See, this is the part you don't usually see, all the mistakes I make. Usually they're all hidden, but not today. So again, changing the brush size back to what it was, because the light's hitting this side. So try to keep it a bit finer. Moving back to the visor now. Just trying to bring out a few strokes here and there to add another dimension. Wanting to add a strong shadow across the bottom of the mask. Helmet, not mask. Now, basically, here we're just trying to pull the focal point. Make strong dark shadows, draws the eye in. And now I'm just blending out the deep shadows. These quick little brush strokes. They tend to make the gradient nice and smooth. Again, erasing out some lines there. Doesn't always work. Quick zoom out to see how the overall piece is going, because sometimes that little window isn't quite enough while I'm drawing. It's okay for a video. Now I'm thinking about adding some deep shadows. Usually if this was a 3 or 4 color print, I would be pulling some of these out in color. But because, well, I still might, but as of this moment, it's not going to have too many colors, just basic colours, so I'm using the black a lot. Must remember to keep that timer turned off when I record videos. Again here, just working back into areas that I've shaded with the eraser tool, creates those nice crisp lines. Nice and come across nice and wide. Very small brush, very light pressure. And then it does create those nice lines. Ooh, quick turn of the canvas. Here, I was trying to work out if I wanted a line or if the highlight would be enough for an edge. In the end, I decided on a very, very faint line. As you could see, I just did. Quick zoom in and out, have a little check. And I think it's this point that I realised I had not drawn in what Boba Fett has on his shoulder. I still can't remember if it's a rope or if it's part of his cape. I should really look for that reference. I think I'm going for rope here, so I'm just trying to make it look like fabric, but yeah, it didn't really work. So erasing all those lines. Sometimes when you have done the pencils a little time before you start inking, it is easy to forget what's what. That's why my process is usually I pencil and then ink within, well, try to start within a few days. Especially when digital, because you don't tend, well, I don't anyway, tend to exactly remember which areas I wanted to focus on. Bring it, these lines up across the shoulder. Keeping them quite loose. I do believe I said I would come back to this at a later date. Later part of the series, not a date. Look how loose I left that. I know we do wrap this video up shortly because I am getting tired at this point. So just trying to create a bit of shadow to outline this area. Bringing some definition across the right hand side as well. This is definitely an area that does need to come back to. But you can still see by the pencil drawing there's quite a lot of work to do still with the basic inks before I try to fix anything up. Bit more definition across the arm. Now trying to draw some still trying to bring out the definition around the back of the cape. Had some feedback there, quite weird. So starting to move up towards the fingers and hands here. A bit of a zoom out to see what's going on. Moving down more towards the waist. Bringing some shadow down underneath the arm. Jumping down, I think now we start looking at the edge of the pocket, all the time thinking about the light coming from the top right of the page, bringing some definition around the satchel, adding a bit more shadow. Ooh, quick twist of the screen. Again, flicking these lines out. Just trying to experiment and try something a bit different all the time. I've not really used these flicks before. Now, so now, as we rotate back to the straight view and zoom out, we're starting to add some lines underneath this part of the satchel. Quite a few strong shadows, and then just defining the right edge. Now making the right edge quite a bit stronger, because it is, although the light is coming from that edge, it is the back of the satchel, so that still wouldn't be getting too much light. Another wide zoom out. and basically doing the same thing on the top, on the fold of the armor. Is that a fold? I think so. Just trying to define the lines with some shadows. Now again, trying to think about exactly where shadow placement should go, especially under the neck is quite a tricky place, because you don't want the shadow of the mask just merging in as one big black shadow, but you do need to define the edge really of the colour. So starting to throw some more of these flicks in, especially along the helmet, trying to give the impression of scarring on the armour. Now, trying to just define the parts of the helmet in shadow. So these are all in shadow around here. I mean, just trying again to define the shape at this stage. Now, a quick little line on the backpack. Oh, that line's way too thick. Quickly redo that. A few more flicks. Quite a lot of changing of my mind as well as we go on. Again, just bringing some shadow out around the helmet. Quickly bringing the layers back in. So here, for the first time, I'm starting to think about adding some colour. So, I mean, ignore the actual colour because it's not the final thing, but I wanted to try to see how well the colour would work. So, yeah, just throwing a blank layer behind the inks we've been working on. Trying a better green. And yeah, very, very loosely, just big brush strokes. Starting to think about colour. This is, as I said, such a quick step that, in fact, I don't actually think I save it. I think I delete the layer. Yeah, I got over it very quickly. Straight back to a jet black, which will be changed before printing anyway. I tend not to print in completely jet black. I forgot to change the brush size there, as you can tell. And now back to some ink in here. Try and thin strokes here, because the light is hitting this. So again, just making some of these little flicks that do create variance in the inks. Don't always want it to be so meticulous. Again, using the eraser tool to delete some shadows I'm not that keen on. Going to work on base of the armor now. Bold shadows here. This is another area that I really want to be full of shadow. In fact, I think I do fill it in with shadows. Yep. Big bold area. That solid lines. I find that it's having a big black area like this, it will offset the heavy black area of the mask, the visor in the mask even, because otherwise that would be too dominant, especially with the shadow underneath the arm. That's an area that would be in shadow anyway, so we can define it. See, after making a big solid area, I do try to feather it out a bit with these initial strokes. You can see me trying to combine the two areas under the actual armor, and then again here using the eraser tool to go back in and try to create a smoother gradient. Very light pressure here to try to keep it as organic as possible. See, as we've zoomed in a bit, you can see how light the brush strokes are here. There's not a lot of pressure here at all. Trying to create those really faint strokes. And then we kind of work into the negative space with the ink again here, because otherwise if it's too one-sided you can still see the solid lines. So still here, just trying to feather it out, and a quick zoom out sees that it's working how I want it to currently. I think with some green from Boba Fett there could look nice. Moving up the right hand side here, that initial stroke was too thick for me. So because it is the bottom of the armor, we do need to add some definition. It can't just be a lightweight line. And I wanted to use vertical lines here to separate the pieces of the armor, but I didn't want to have straight lines the whole way, so in the dividing lines I tried to bring out the lines quite predominantly, but then fade them out towards the middle to simulate even the light hitting this part of the armor.